Pleasant good morning to all my dear students. I hope you all are taking care of yourself. Students, today we will continue chapter 4, A Journey to the Moon, and complete it. Let's start. I'm giving you 2 minutes. Be ready with your literature book. Chapter number 4, A Journey to the Moon. So, students, in the previous class, we studied that 21st July 1969 is famous because man stood on the moon for the first time on that day. We also got to know that there is no life on the moon because there is no air and water, because we human beings depend on air and water for our survival. After that, we also know that day on the moon is 2 weeks long, and so as moon night. After that, we studied that the highest mountain on the moon is higher than the Mount Everest, which is the highest mountain on the earth. Then we studied that it is very difficult to reach the moon because of gravitational force. Earth pulls everything towards itself. And for that purpose, rocket has been launched that only engine that can push far enough from the earth to reach the space. And two countries, America and Russia, they wanted to reach the moon, and for that in 1957 Russians they made a machine which is known as Sputnik 1, that is pushed into the space by rocket. It went round the earth for 95 days. This machine works by sending radio waves to earth. Sputnik 1 was famous, but it was only a machine. And after that, we got to know that who was the first traveler in space. It was a white dog Laika that Russians sent, and they gave her food and water and a spacesuit of her own. She went round the earth more than 100 times, but when she reached in space, she got died. After that, we read that Russians sent two more dogs, Little Arrow and Squirrel, both returned safely from the space. Then America sent Monkey, and he went twice round the earth and returned safely. So we can say animals were the first space heroes. Then we studied that the first man to travel round the earth in space was Yuri Gagarin. He was a Russian. He was only 27 years old and he had flown jet aeroplanes. And when he returned, he said how beautiful earth is. Yuri Gagarin, he remained in the space machine that which is called the spacecraft. But in 1965, another Russian, Alexei Leonov, left his spaceship and he walked in space. And in reality, he was swimming there because there was no land beneath his feet. He swam in space for 20 minutes. Brave men who go into the space are called astronauts. They wear special clothes called space suit. They have to wear special shoes, gloves, and special cover for their head, which is known as space helmet. The first spacecraft that took men to the moon was Apollo 11, and three astronauts were inside it. They were Michael Collins, Neil Armstrong, and Edwin Aldrin. So the first two men who landed and walked on the moon were Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin. So the rocket and spacecraft together were as tall as 36 houses on the top of the other. The spacecraft became the spaceman's home. It is built in three parts. As we discussed, that the largest part is called as command module, which is the most important part. At the bottom of the command module are all engines, and in the middle there is a room for the spaceman, that is for the astronauts, with windows with which they can watch the earth, moon and stars. They keep their food in that room and all the things they will need. In the front is a door which leads to the lunar module. So lunar module takes the spaceman, or you can say takes the astronaut from the command module to the moon and brings them back. So lunar module is very important. As I told you that it takes the spaceman from the command module to the moon and brings them back. So it is the size of two telephone box and it contains two seats for the spaceman. It has two doors. Lunar module has two doors. One leads to command module from where they are entering the lunar module, and second other open into the space, because lunar module is taking the spaceman from command module to the space. So one door, it has two doors. One door is leading to command module and second is leading to space. So there are two windows. On July 16, 1969, in the early morning, there was a sound of thunder. Orange and white flames jumped from a huge rocket, and Apollo 11 went into the air. 24 hours later, it was already halfway to the moon. First, the spacemen went round the moon 10 times, and then Aldrin and Armstrong, they crawled into the lunar module. Crawled means they moved slowly to the lunar module, which they called Eagle. Is it clear? So what happened on July 16, 1969 in the early morning? Apollo 11 went into the air. This is the spacecraft which took the spacemen into the space. So it went into the air, and after 24 hours, what happened? When they reached halfway to the moon, first the spacemen they went round the moon 10 times, and then Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin, they moved slowly into the lunar module, which they called Eagle. Lunar module was called as Eagle. There they looked carefully at all the machines, and then Eagle left the command module, which continued to travel round the moon. Armstrong chose a good spot. He let down the legs of the module and it came down gently on the moon's face. So when they entered lunar module, which is called as Eagle, they looked carefully at all the machines, and then Eagle left the command module and moved towards the moon. Armstrong, he chose a good spot. He let down the legs of the Eagle, or you can say the module, and it came down gently on the moon's face. It landed on the moon's face. Although they were very excited, the astronauts could not jump out immediately into the dry dust of the moon. They had to check all the machines on Eagle first. Then they opened the door and put down a ladder onto the silent, empty moon. Armstrong went down feet first and waited a second at the bottom of the ladder. He touched the ground carefully with one foot and then took the last step down onto the moon. Edwin Aldrin followed him. Then the two men were very busy. They took photographs, picked up moon rocks and moon dust. The moon is the color of Coca-Cola, they said. That evening, Eagle left the moon. 3.5 hours later, they met their spacecraft, joined it, and crawled back from Eagle into the command module. Then they let Eagle fly away into space forever. They came down in the blue Pacific Ocean. Were they happy when they felt the sea beneath them? What do you think? So, this was the experience shared by Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin when they landed on the moon's face. They took photographs. They took photographs, they picked up moon dust and moon rocks. Moon is the color of Coca Cola. Whatever they observed, they shared. So, after 3.5 hours, they met their spacecraft. They crawled from Eagle to command module, and then they let Eagle to fly into space forever. In this, the end of the story. Is this the end of the story? No, the story is only a beginning. Man can see the stars very clearly from the moon. Already there are plans to reach two of the planets, Mars and Venus, which are nearer to the Earth than other planets. Can you guess how long it will take to travel there from the Earth? It will take 9 months. So you see, space travel is not only just a beginning, but nothing in the future will be as important as man's first step on the moon. So I hope the chapter is clear to everyone. With this, your chapter number 4, Journey to the Moon, is completed. Complete the notes of chapter 4 in your fair notebook and do the back exercise in the book itself. Thank you and have a nice day.